Good afternoon. Good afternoon. This is Point of View with Shirley, Cleester, Eula, and Merethah. Shirley, Cleester, Eula, and Merethah. And it is such a wonderful day. Wonderful day. Today we are going to talk about the pursuit of happiness. Of happiness. The pursuit of happiness. And we've heard about it. It's in the Constitution, the phrase the pursuit of happiness is in the Constitution. So I want to talk about that. That is what came to my mind today. And I want to talk about the pursuit of happiness. And I'm saying I hope and trust and pray that you're doing very well today. The pursuit of happiness. And before I go on with my webcast. First, I want to pray, dear God, as I sit before you to speak, I pray to you that my soul you will keep. And if I should die before I finish, I pray to you, dear God, in the name of Jesus, that any outstanding sins will be forgiven. Amen. So, the pursuit of happiness, and I hope and pray that all is well with you. And if it is not, I am yet praying for and with you. And I want to start out today that I just found out today that Nancy Winters White has transitioned into eternity, and that Jackie Boy, we call him Jackie Boy Clark, has transitioned into eternity. And also, I think I mentioned Elwanda McFadden Hamilton. She has transitioned into eternity. And so God is, He's calling us into eternity to get our eternal reward. And I want to let the families know that I am praying for them. And all of this is public information. That's why I'm saying it here on Point of View. I'm not doing anything that's not been made public or saying anything. So I'm not infringing on anybody's rights. Okay. So I just wanted to say that. And so I'm praying for the families and with the families, and I want you to know that I am thinking about you and keeping you lifted up before God. So I'm going on, and the pursuit of happiness, and we know that part is in the Constitution, the pursuit of happiness. So I want to talk about the pursuit of happiness. And we know that we have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And it's phrased in the Declaration of Independence, okay, in the Declaration of Independence. So we want to talk some about that. So I want to do something, say something about that. And this is Wikipedia. The life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And I think about this because I did see that movie Will Smith and his son starred in. And to me, that was a super fantastic movie because it seemed so real. And I could see us in it pursuing happiness. And he pursued his happiness. He went through trials and tribulations like we all do. And that's as far as I'm going to go on that movie, just in case some of you have not seen the movie, The Pursuit of Happiness. I would recommend that to anyone. Thank you so much for being with me today. Clee is working. I spoke with her this morning, and of course, Merethah and Eula are working. Okay. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is a well known phrase from the United States Declaration of Independence. The phrase gives three examples of the unalienable rights, which the Declaration says have been given to all humans by their Creator, and which governments are created to protect. Like the other principles of the Declaration of Independence, the phrase is not legally binding, but has been widely referenced and seen as an inspiration for the basis of government. Yes, we do have a right to the pursuit of happiness. And you know that I will not hesitate to say and compare it to what the Bible tells us, that God wants us to be happy. He wants us to be prosperous. In in health as our souls prosper. He wants us to be happy. There are scriptures, happy is the man that delighteth in the Lord, and happy is man, happy, happy. So God wants us to be happy too. So the Declaration of Independence is just putting an what is it, exclamation on it, and letting us know that we do have the right. Now we know that this has not played out like it was supposed to, and they put it in there, but we know that people have the right to the pursuit of happiness, but there are so many who try to uh, prevent people from having that right and exercising that right for the pursuit of happiness. So the United States Declaration of Independence was drafted by Thomas Jefferson and then edited by the Committee of Five, which consisted of Jefferson, John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, Roger Sherman, and Robert Livingston. It was a further it was further then edited and adopted by the Committee of the Whole of the Second Continental Congress on July 4th, 1776. The second paragraph of the first article in the Declaration of Independence contains the phrase, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So the original rough draft that Jefferson had is on exhibit, and you can see that in the Library of Congress. So if you ever go and visit there, the version was used by Julian Boyd to create a transcript of Jefferson's draft, which reads, "We hold these truths to be sacred and undeniable, that all men are created equal and independent, that from that equal creation they derive rights inherent and inalienable, among which are the preservation of life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness." And then the Committee of Five edited Jefferson's draft, and their version survived further edits by the whole Congress intact. And it reads, "We hold these truths to be self evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." So, a number of possible sources of inspiration for Jefferson's use of the phrase in the Declaration of Independence have been identified. Although scholars debate the extent to which any one of them actually influenced Jefferson. So, the greatest disagreement comes between those who suggest the phrase was drawn from John Locke and those who more strongly attribute to Jean Jacques Rousseau. All right, so I'm not going to bother that anymore. So I want to talk about the American pursuit of happiness. And this is in Psychology Today. It's a short piece, but I want to talk about this. And this was, I think it was like 2018, and it's posted November 27, 2018. And it's the American pursuit of happiness. And this is Lawrence R. Samuel, PhD, and Psychology Yesterday, if we say, and this is on Psychology Today, okay? Happiness, the American pursuit of happiness, American search for happiness has been a remarkably democratic one. Hi, thank you so much for being with me, talking about the pursuit of happiness today. We all have a right, a God given right to pursue happiness. The Declaration of Independence doesn't have to tell us that. We all have the right to pursue happiness. It's a God given right, okay? So ask any American what he or she wants most in life, and the majority will say to be happy. And we know that, and that's a fact. The pursuit of happiness, a phrase penned by the founding fathers in the Declaration of Independence, has served as a primary ambition for many Americans in the nation's history, especially during the past century. Happiness became a louder and louder part of the national conversation over the years, riding on the greater interest in psychology and the expansion of the field, especially as related to personality. Most of the time, what do you want most out of life? We've heard people say this, and some people have asked us to, what is the most important thing? And many people say to be happy. And to be happy entails so many other things, so many other things. They're parts that come together and make happiness, okay? So the writer said, despite my myriad of social, economic, and political factors, including the crossing over into a new century and millennium, an aging population, a technological revolution, and the entry of the large institutions and major corporations on the scene, the degree of happiness in America has not budged for as long as it has been measured. The degree of happiness. So, what do you want? I want to be happy. So, today, much interest currently revolves around happiness in America and around the world, so much so that one could reasonably argue that there is a happiness movement afoot. Okay? So Americans' ambitious, perhaps even desperate search for happiness has been a remarkably democratic one. No segment of the population has been excluded, with studies showing time and time again that social and economic divisions such as income, education, intelligence, and religion matter little in determining one's level of happiness. And I'm going to go ahead and do what the researchers say. Researchers have pulled happiness apart every which way over the past century in the attempt to establish a scientific basis for the fledgling field, but these efforts have been largely in vain. Relatedly, individuals' happiness has been little affected by the wide cultural swings the nation has experienced since the end of World War I. Boom or bust, war or peace, turmoil or tranquility, or liberal or conservative in the White House, Americans' happiness has proven to be largely resilient to the consistent or the constant shifting of our social and economic plates. So, not surprisingly, given the complexity and enigmatic nature of the emotion, happiness has proved to be a very challenging subject for researchers in the field to try to understand. There's something about it, they just cannot put their finger on it. But that's something that I believe that every person in the whole wide world that is, was, and will be, they want happiness. We have a right to pursue happiness. We have a right to go after it. And like I think that was President Bush said, hunt them down, smoke them out. Let me see, smoke them, hunt them down and smoke them out. We have a right to pursue happiness, hunt it down and smoke it out at all costs because we have a right to be happy. That is a God-given right to be happy. And that's why I stress there are people who will, you can be at your, seems like your highest point around people that you're supposed to be at that time, and you can be happy and jovial. And there's someone that always wants to put a damper on your happiness. Don't let people dampen your happiness. Don't let them mess with your happiness. You can be happy, happy, happy when you're not around anybody. You can be happy when you're in a room full of people, in a stadium full of people. You can be happy all by yourself because you know who you are and you know who made you. That is God Almighty, okay? He made you and He wants you to be happy. He has given you that right, and you be happy no matter what. You grab it, you pursue it, you hunt it down and smoke it out if you have to, but you be happy. That is my desire for you. Researchers have asked the same questions over the decades, with the answers still not clear. Does a happy childhood produce a happy adult? Sometimes. Were people in the past happier than today? Perhaps. Is happiness more a function of environmental factors or the individual mind? And some say the latter, others say the former. Okay. And is happiness the opposite? Is unhappiness the opposite of happiness? Apparently not, strangely enough, with some studies showing that each emotion has a range or spectrum all of its own. And see, all this has been researched. They've done tests, they run tests on people's minds, their emotions, and everything. So they have proof out here, but they've never, ever been able to pinpoint happiness. Okay? What is happiness anyway? A subjective state of well being, according to the experts. That's what they got out of it. Okay, further complicating matters has been the bias critics have shown when examining happiness. Sociologists have viewed happiness through the lens of society, psychologists, the mind. See, wasn't I just saying that? Um, Physicians, the body, preachers, one's faith, politicians, the government, and so on. Every occupation, every sector of life has their own way of trying to define and find out what happiness is. And I want to repeat that, okay? People have viewed happiness, sociologists have viewed happiness. They cannot put their finger on it because you can be in your most desperate state. You could be at the saddest moment in your life and you still have a portion of happiness because happiness is resilient. You just said that a while ago, and I believe that. And one thing about it, God has designed us, mind, body, and soul, that we are resilient, and things can be happening around us, and we can still have that degree of happiness that we need to survive. Oh, yes, we can. Sociologists have viewed happiness through the lens of society. Psychologists, the mind, and you know I'm repeating this. Physicians, the body. Preachers, one's faith. Politicians, the government, and so on. So this has made the field a jumble of hodgepodge of viewpoints. But more so, he said, I believe, than most other subjects, trying to pinpoint happiness. So you have a right to pursue happiness. Go forward with all the gusto that God has put in you because you deserve it. I deserve it. We deserve it. As well, all sorts of experts have attempted to control or take ownership of happiness in America in some way, and that's for real. This too contributing to the scattered nature of the subject. There are people that try to control your degree of happiness. They feel like they can allow you to go so far, and then when you're at the point where they feel like you're just too happy, they try to put a damper on it. But like I said, don't let people put a damper on your happiness. Don't let people do it to you. Okay? Business people, government officials, and religious leaders have seen themselves as arbiters of happiness and have assumed responsibility for delivering it to Americans in order to solidify their own power. And that's for real. They think that they have the power, they have power over you. They feel like what they've done is given you that happiness and all of that, okay? Likewise, politicians from each persuasion have often claimed to be the greater instrument of happiness than their competitors, making it appear that the emotion can be bestowed rather than earned, and they cannot do that. I don't care what people say, what they do, they cannot control your happiness to any degree. Okay? Your happiness is your happiness. It belongs to you, and you have the right to pursue happiness. Grab it up, grab it up, and use it for the duration of your life. Happiness. There are times you can be happy in the midst of sorrow. I'm telling you, you can yet be happy in the midst of sorrow. There's something about happiness. There's something about happiness. It's resilient. It's resilient, and God designed it that way. The pursuit of happiness. And America is obsessed with happiness. This is another part here. And this is Vox.com. That was Psychology Today, the last one. The first one was Wikipedia. And this one is Vox, VOX.com. America is obsessed with happiness and it's making us miserable. And this is a Brit on Life in America. The pursuit of happiness has gotten out of hand, and it depends on how you see it and what situation you're in and what experiences you have. And yes, the pursuit of happiness has gotten out of hands and gone to extents where people have gone to certain extents where they have violated other people's rights. And there, let me go here because I certainly wanted to give this part um, about uh, the pursuit of happiness. I want to do that because I want to read what it was saying about it. Let me see here. I want to make sure that I get that. But it is a right that we have, and we have a right to pursue it, and we have a right to possess happiness as long as it doesn't encroach another person's happiness in their life. Okay, we be happy, we can be happy. Now when somebody is upset because you're happy, that's their problem, not yours. Okay, you be happy anyway. So I saw that the pursuit of happiness, gosh. Well, let me go ahead and go back to where I was because it was the Constitution and it was telling us we have that. But I'm going back here and talk about the obsession of happiness and say this person says that America's obsessed with happiness. So he said, I'm at the gynecologist. So this is a lady evidently for my pap smear. Feet in stirrups, idly wondering what Emily Post might have suggested as appropriate small talk for those moments when the person you are speaking to will be replying to your vagina. So we've been living in America for a few months now, having moved here from London for my husband's job. I needed, I needn't have worried. The doctor's doing all the talking, delving deep with her speculum. She delves deeper into matters of the heart. Apparently, she is reading Gretchen Rubin's bestseller, Happier at Home, and finding it very instructive. She said, I've read that book too and am suddenly overcome with crippling self consciousness. She said, I hope desperately that my gynecologist is not currently reading the part about how, in order to achieve true happiness, it is advisable to give total mental focus to how everything around you smells. Okay. So 6 months ago, she said, I would have found it hard to believe that I would be discussing the path to everlasting bliss with the OBGYN. But after a stint living in California, it feels almost routine. So since arriving here, I feel as though I have had more conversations about my own and other people's happiness than in the whole of the rest of my life put together. And so she's going to talk about the difference in happiness here and in Britain, okay? The biggest difference between Britain and America. This is a writer's point of view, okay? So this is the first person account, and she did this in 2016. Oh, and this was in October too. Wow. So the biggest difference between Britain and America, America is obsessed with happiness. This is her point of view. She said, we moved to the States from the UK when my techie husband, Neil, was offered a job with a software startup in Silicon Valley. A lifelong Americanophile. He had jumped at the chance, and I had quit my frenetic job making television documentaries to be a stay at home mom with our toddler son, Solly. She said, a few months in, desperate for adult conversation, I am sidling up to anyone and everyone. Moms pushing swings next to me in the playground, the dry cleaner, the man in front of me in line at the grocery store, and strange and a range of random local contacts scratched together for me by friends back in London. Oddly, she says, the same topic comes up time and time again. And you can guess what that topic is, can't you? Happiness. All right. So she goes on to say, the conversations tend to fall into two broad categories, the agonizing kind and the evangelical kind. As a compulsive overthinker myself, how many of us can be classified as compulsive overthinkers? Okay, the agonizing one feels more familiar to me. She said, these conversations are all about questions. Am I with the right person? Am I following my passions? Am I doing what I love? What is my purpose in life? Am I as happy as I should be? We've all heard these questions before, and some of us have asked some of these questions to ourselves or someone that we know and we're close to. And hey, and if you're a counselor, you've asked people these things too. Okay? So their answers range from the mundane to the mind boggling. Yoga and meditation, keeping a gratitude journal, a weekend seminar on how to unleash the power within, keeping your baby attached to your body for a minimum of 22 hours out of every 24. And most bafflingly, she said, n- not least on a practical level, the drinking of wolf colostrum. Whoa, my goodness. A friend of a friend that I met for coffee livings up a rather dull, or livens up, excuse me, please. This is British language here. So they kind of, phrase things a little different from us, okay? A friend of a friend that I met for coffee livens up a rather dull conversation about what time her husband gets home from work, and with the observation that it really doesn't matter one way or the other, as the most important person in her life is actually Jesus. Wow. Oh, wow. It seems, and we know Jesus is supposed to be the most important person in our life because he is God. So we understand that. But my chuckle is that she talks about how her husband, what time he gets home from work. So evidently some degree of importance to her, but then it doesn't matter to her what time he gets home from work because Jesus is the head of her life. That's how we phrase it. So it seems as though happiness in America has become the overachiever's ultimate trophy, a modern trump card. It outranks professional achievement and social success, family, friendship, and even love. Okay, happiness outranks all of those according to this writer on Vox.com. Its invocation deftly minimizes others' achievements. She said, well, I suppose she has a perfect job and gorgeous husband, but is she really happy? And takes the shine off our own. So some people, they portray that they're super duper happy and they're the most miserable people in the whole wide world. So people put on what they call a facade in many things, in many situations and for many things. So Anyway, you have to be happy for yourself. You don't have to try to prove anything to anybody. You be happy, because when you start trying to impress other people, that takes away a part of your true happiness. So be happy for yourself. And when you're happy for yourself, then that happiness spreads to other people because it is contagious. Yes, it is. So it all feels long way from the British approach I was brought up with. Jefferson knew what he was doing when he wrote that pursuit of happiness line, a perfectly delivered slap in the face of his joy stunning oppressors across the pond. Emotionally awkward and primed for skepticism, the British are generally uncomfortable around the subject and, as a rule, don't subscribe to the happy ever after. Wow. So we're learning something from this lady's point of view about the Brits also. So it's not that we don't want to be happy. It just feels embarrassing to discuss it and demeaning to chase it, like calling someone moments after a first date to ask if they like you. Wow. So she's going to talk about now the default British mindset is cynicism. And remember the other day, oh, whatever I was talking about, it said that the Brits are not, they don't want to appear to be, what is it, over anxious and doing something. It was something like that. I'll have to go back and look at one of those shows. I think it might have been something in this week's or last week's point of view. But anyway, the default British mindset is cynicism. So they don't show their feelings openly like us. Okay. That was, I think that was the main fact of that, what I read whenever I was reading that and giving it out on point of view, I think, or either Greater Gospel Temple. So the default British mindset is cynicism. Thank you so much for being with me. Self-help books and yoga classes and meditation all exist in the UK, of course. There's no shortage of people willing to take your money in return for the promise of bliss, but they somehow don't have the same magnetic pull, our inbuilt cultural skepticism providing a natural check. So they're not as open as we are about it, okay? Part of this is that Americans seem to have a deep cultural aversion to negativity. This can be a welcome change, but the pressure to remain positive at all times often results in some complicated mental gymnastics. She said, my son's report card at preschool divided his performance not into strengths and weaknesses, but into strengths and emerging strengths. All right. So, American problems, according to our writer, are routinely rebranded as opportunities. Now, I like that. American problems are routinely rebranded as opportunities. Hence, the filthy bathroom in our local supermarket displays a sign saying, if this restroom fails to meet your expectations, please inform us of the opportunity, as if reeking puddles of urine are merely inspirational occasion for personal growth. And we see those signs in there. And there's one I saw, I think I saw this. Um, oh gosh, what was it? If you, anyway, but it was something about if you, let me see, sprinkle when you tinkle. It was something, and I think I saw that the first time in Saint Emmanuel, but it was another part to it telling, if you do that, then make sure you clean up after yourself, okay? And they had all the supplies in there, so if you sprinkle when you tinkle, make sure you clean up the commode seat before you leave out and leave it for somebody else, because that is disgusting, isn't it? Oh, yes, it is. Okay, I'm not gonna go any further on that because you think about when you go somewhere and some people be in a hurry and they flop down and they say, "Oh no!" So you understand what I'm saying? But I think that's a That's a very nice way to put it. It was so nice, and it was kind of comical too, but it hit where it needed to hit. It hit home. So cynicism is the British stick, our knee-jerk starting point. She said, I think back to a time a few years ago when I was working at the BBC in London, and our managers booked a motivational trainer to come and attempt to galvanize the dispirited employees in my department. She said the trainer identified the problem. We were all far too negative and would be much happier and better motivated if we would just stop saying no all the time. He suggested that next time someone put forward an idea, instead of responding with the words no, but insert mean-spirited objection to other person's creativity, we should instead force ourselves to respond with a yes and. And it really makes a difference. That but seems to be negative, but and seems to be positive, okay? So insert positive spirited, constructive comment building on other person's idea. So he made us try out kicking things off himself with an initial sample idea, then throwing it over to the next person in line to pick up. Yes, and that's bollocks, said the next person. So this pretty much sums up the British attitude. Say the man said, don't say no so much. Don't say no but so much. Say yes and somebody said, oh, that's nonsense. Okay. So in America, mindfulness is everywhere. In America, mindfulness is everywhere. It feels good to be away from this sometimes life leeching negativity, but I also find it hard to throw myself full tilt into the American approach to hunting down bliss. So this makes me feel good that this is the way she sees us in America, as positive. It might be a little too positive for her because she is brought up and it's in her nature to not be so positive, as at least don't show it publicly, okay? So happiness over here has its own vocabulary: mindfulness, empowerment, okay? Whenever, this is the writers talking, okay? Whenever I hear the word empowerment, it always makes me feel slightly edgy, as if at any moment I might be asked to take my clothes off. So if someone suggests that a given activity is going to be empowering, I know it is almost certainly going to be undignified or mildly humiliating or involve heights. Man, that's some difference in it from us and them. So as a rule, empowerment appears to be the consolation prize for those of us who will never have any actual power, and you can safely assume that no one in any position of genuine authority will be joining in. Creating a Tumblr of photos of your post, C-section wobbling, and scarred naked stomach, empowering. Creating a Tumblr of photos or a Tumblr of photos of your post prostate surgery rectum, not so much, Senator. Oh my goodness. Now I wonder, I haven't seen any of that, wouldn't look at it anyway. But some people put a lot of stuff online, don't they? A whole lot of stuff, all right? But there, we have a right to reject it. Okay, we don't have to look at it. Mindfulness is everywhere. The hugely popular zeitgeist theory that in order to be happy, we must live fully in the present moment with total mental focus on whatever we are doing or experiencing right this second. So, Time magazine published an 8-page spread with the front cover title, The Mindful Revolution. It opened with the author, an impressive and decorated journalist, bringing the full force of her considerable mental capacity to bear on a raisin. Okay? The raisin glistens. I can't help thinking that, as a rule, food shouldn't glisten. She's talking just like she says she was brought up, okay? That's in her. She can't see what we can see. It says because she said a glistening raisin, and she said food shouldn't glisten, okay? So she said during her first few months in America, she said, I come across mindful parenting, mindful business dealings, mindful eating, and even mindful dishwashing, complete with the detailed set of instructions on the Huffington Post in printable format to pin above the sink on how to wash dishes, okay? So according to the practices thought leaders, in order to achieve maximum happiness, the mindful dishwasher must refuse to succumb to domestic autopilot and instead fully mentally engage with every piece of congealed scrambled egg and clump of oatmeal on the saucepan. My goodness, so they have instructions for that. This is news to me. Okay, but there are people in this world that will try to tell you how to do everything, okay? And that's okay too, because some people probably need those instructions. I'm pretty sure they do. So I am not knocking anyone, okay? So she says, I find mindfulness a hard theory to embrace. She says, surely one of the most magnificent things about the human brain is its ability to hold past, present, and future and their imagined alternatives in constant parallel to offset the tedium of washing dishes and and Pinoli with the chance to be simultaneously mentally in Bangkok or Don Draper's boxer shorts, or finally telling your mother in law that despite her belief that no one born in the 70s died, using a car seat isn't spoiling your child. She said, I struggle to see how greater happiness could be achieved by reining in that magical sense of scope and possibility to stare down some oatmeal. This is neat. She said, though I'm probably just being defensive, she said, as a person who is ridiculously distractible, the whole philosophy of mindfulness comes across almost as a personal attack, an intervention from some well meaning body to compel me to stop doing the which brunch entree are you BuzzFeed quiz and go road llama, or excuse me. She said, here she goes. Let me find the beginning of this sentence because this is a long sentence. I see that they write long sentences too. She said, as a person who is ridiculously distractible, she said, the whole philosophy of mindfulness comes across almost as a personal attack, an intervention from some well meaning body to compel me to stop doing the which brunch entree are you BuzzFeed quiz and go read Llama Llama, I'm a Self Harmer to my son for the 19th time this morning. My goodness, Llama Llama, I'm a self harmer. My goodness. So, anyone, she says, I'm convinced that the idea, what she's saying here is that we as Americans are obsessed with happiness, that we are different from the Brits. that we are obsessed with happiness. So she said, I'm convinced that the idea that distraction is a product of the modern age and that our foremothers spent their days in a state of total mindful focus on their children is a myth. She said the desperate urge to escape the more grinding realities of child care was surely just as strong for our mother's generation. They just used Valium instead of iPhones. My goodness. Whew. I'm glad we weren't brought up like that on a bunch of pills, and we needed this pill to cope with this, we needed this pill to cope with this, or we needed this drink to go to cope with this, and all of it. I thank God for that, because some people depend on that, okay? So I start to wonder whether the high octane approach to the pursuit of happiness, and that's what we're talking about, the pursuit of happiness. And my stressing, my point to stress today to you is, don't ever let anybody dampen your happiness. You be happy. And I was saying in the beginning, we can be in a state of sadness or distress and deep, but we still have happiness. We're still happy deep inside. Okay. So she said, I start to wonder whether the high octane approach to the pursuit of happiness that I'm seeing here in middle class California is in any way representative of American culture more widely. California has always been the headquarters of the great American search for happiness, and the people I am meeting, although generally not rich or part of any kind of mega elite, do tend to be college educated professionals, a similar bracket to me and most of my social network back in the UK. She said, is all this joy hunting just the ultimate luxury for a privileged bunch of high income Californians? So she's wondering, do we in Texas feel like this about the pursuit of happiness? Do other people in other states feel like the Californians do? And then she gave her take on what she feels it is. So, the pursuit of happiness, we all have the right to the pursuit of happiness. We pursue, we go after, we chase it down. And we possess happiness. That is our God given right. Capital God. Okay? We have the right to pursue and possess happiness. A bit of digging suggests not. Okay, she said, do we all think like Californians about happiness? She said, happiness. She said, a bit of digging suggests not, excuse me. The explicit and focused quest for happiness as a goal distinct from the rest of life is seeping through virtually all sections of American society. And she's going to talk about Oprah now. She said, Oprah Winfrey, the reigning queen of the happy seekers, is widely considered to be one of the most influential people in America, having brought her signature brand of self improvement and spirituality to hundreds of millions of Americans. Hundreds of millions, yet around half of her audience had a household income of less than $50,000, the US median, and a similar proportion had no education beyond high school. Mindfulness is seeping into the public education system through the nation. In Ohio, Congressmember Tim Ryan recently received a sizable federal grant to bring mindfulness classes into the state's elementary schools, although at least one school discontinued the program after parents complained that they were taking valuable time away from education to put students in a room of darkness to lay on their backs. Wow. Okay. So Americans buy $1 billion worth of self-help books and audiobooks each year. My goodness. Meanwhile, The internet bursts with links of motivational happiness seminars all across the country aimed at the unemployed, rebranding destitution as an exciting opportunity for personal development. Instead of rebranding destitution, uh, hey, these phrases are nice, okay? Putting them in a different way. So, is America's fixation on happiness working? So, this is her point. Is America's fixation on happiness working? So, she said, it occurs to me that all these happiness pursuits often don't seem to be making people particularly happy. When a new American friend persuades me to try out a yoga class, you can almost smell the tension and misery in the room. Although it's a little hard to determine cause and effect, as anyone who was already feeling happy would be unlikely to waste the sensation in a fetid room at the YWCA, contorting their body into uncomfortable positions. The happy person would be more likely to be off doing something fun, like sitting in the park drinking. Before moving to America, she says, I didn't really give a whole lot of dedicated thought to whether I was happy. Like most people in any given day, I will experience emotions and sensations, including, but not limited to, hilarity, joy, irritation, ambivalence, excitement, embarrassment, paralyzing self doubt, boredom, anxiety, guilt, heart stopping love, resentment, pride, exhaustion, and the shrill, insistent buzz of uneaten chocolate somewhere in the house. All right. So, you know what? She is making me think about things. We go through so many different, thoughts, actions, reactions in an entire day. So many different things are just going in and out of our minds. We're doing so many things at the same time. God is awesome, isn't He? He made us. We are wonderfully and beautifully made. We are resilient. Man, we can stand things that we wouldn't even think about standing until we've already stood them. Okay? So it's hard to pin one definite label on all this clattering emotional noise. But she says, I'm confident that if you add them all up and then divide by the number of emotions or whatever other formula they use to calculate the statistics and all the research studies on happiness that I start to notice in the press. She said, then you can reach an average falling squarely into the box marked contentment. Wow. After all of this she has seen, after all of the research she's heard about, read about, that she knows about, she said you can put this into a box marked contentment. Contentment. Wow. But the more conversation she says I have about happiness, and the more I absorb the idea that there's a glittering happy ever after out there for the taking, the more I start to overthink the whole thing, compulsively monitoring how I feel and hyper parenting my emotions. Am I happy right at this moment? What about now? And now? Am I happy enough? As happy as everyone else? What about Megan? Is she happier than me? She looks happier. What is she doing that I'm not doing? Maybe I should take up yoga. This is amazing, isn't it? The thoughts that go through our minds on a daily basis. And these are things that we didn't even think that we would think about. But if we think about it, we can think about some things that have been going through our minds daily. And like just like today, so many things that we cannot keep up with. It's amazing That's why I say that God is supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. And that means he's better than good. Man, the things, the way he's made us, the things that our mind holds, the things that our bodies endure, it is absolutely, uh, if I can use this, mind boggling. We can't explain it in any way, but just saying that it is the work of a true and a living God. So the whole process starts to become painfully, comically neurotic, she says. Workaday contentment starts to give way to a low grade sense of inadequacy when pitched against capital H happiness. The goal is so elusive and hard to define, it's impossible to pinpoint when it's even been reached, a recipe for anxiety. To an outstander, it or an outsider, excuse me, it can sometimes feel as though the entire population has a nationwide standardized happiness exam to take, and everyone is frantically cramming the night before to get a good grade. Like a stony faced, that's hilarious. After a joke in place of laughter, another mindly unnerving staple of conversation in this country, it appears that somewhere along the line, the joy has been sucked out of the American happiness. The joy has been sucked out of the American happiness. Now, you know where I'm going to go. This joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. The world didn't give it, and the world can't take it away. Just like if I don't allow it to, it cannot take my happiness. Okay? Oddly, even adjusting for emotional openness. She said, my new happiness seeking American acquaintances seem no happier and often more anxious than my cynical, joy slacking British ones. My instinct is that this is because happiness should be serendipitous by the byproduct of a life well lived, and chasing it in a vacuum just doesn't really work. She said, I want to dig a little deeper and find out whether this hunch stands up to scrutiny. So she has really been talking and researching about this. So she said, what the research says, the more people see happiness as a goal, the less happy they are. And I can understand that. She said, research tells us that the more people see happiness as a goal, the less happy they are. Yeah, because if you're constantly concentrating and trying to do this and trying to do that, you make a chore out of it. And that can't be a happy thing, okay? So just be happy, loosen up, and enjoy life and be happy. That joy that's inside of you, let it come out and let it fill you day by day. And just like the other day, the Lord said to me that He had already blessed the day. Every day that we come into is already a blessed day. Okay? Take that happiness that you have inside, that resilience that you have inside, and build on it. I say again, don't let anyone destroy your happiness. You have the right to pursue happiness. I'm just going to read just the, no, it's 159. But she said what the research says, the more people see happiness as a goal, the less happy they are. And she said after some initial research, I found a couple of somewhat surprising studies by psychologists from the University of California, Berkeley. In the first, participants were given a questionnaire and asked to rate how high they valued happiness as an explicit goal and how happy they were. And she says, surprisingly, and it's time for me to go out and I'll be out before 2:01. She said, surprisingly, the higher the respondent rated happiness as a distinct personal ambition, the less happy they were in their lives generally, and more likely they were to experience symptoms of dissatisfaction and even depression. I thank you so much for being with me. I love you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I will be getting back with you as soon as I see your comments. I love you so much. Enjoy the remainder of your day.